If we've learned anything this evening, it's this. There is no way we can predict what lies ahead for us. That's particularly true of our final story. One day you wake up, get out of bed, and get ready for work. The sun is shining, and everything seems as it should. But this day turns out to be anything but ordinary. In an instant, everything changes, and the world we knew will never be the same again. Let's take a look at our final story.
John was a very unique individual, very strong, confident, competent.
John had two personalities. There was two people in one. One, people knew him as an airline pilot, but the other side of him was a farmer. And we always used to joke around. Was he a farmer dressed up like an airline pilot, or an airline pilot dressed up like a farmer?
John and I met on a work trip where I was the flight attendant and he was, at the time, flight engineer. I think we had our first date in December and we were married by the following October.
First met John and Penny probably back in 1987. They were starting their family, and John was starting to acquire land to build the farm as it exists today. And they were building this farm, which took capital. I think Peg, made sure that John and I, the three of us, talked about, the need for protecting his income.
My parents were visiting from New York. I remember my mom saying there was a phone call for me, and it was my brother-in-law, Jim.
And I was watching breaking news on CNN, and they said the airplane hit the World Trade Center in New York City.
And they were saying that the first airplane had been an American Airlines 767 from Boston. And I remember at that point just dropping to my knees and knowing in that instant that it had to be John. You can see something happening on television, you know it's real, but then to make that connection is very, very difficult. Knowing that your husband's airplane just went into that building. Clearly, there are no survivors, and yet a very vibrant person walked out the door only a couple of hours before.
My father was a pilot and clearly brought in the majority of our family's income. And without his income, without help and proper planning, we wouldn't be in this home. I wouldn't have been able to stay at my private high school that I was at.
Life insurance has been so important in our family because it allowed us in our time of trauma and mourning to be able to stay in our house and live the same life that we lived before 9/11.
A lot of the coverage was term. The thing was to cover the need and make sure all the debt was covered and make sure that educations were provided for and things like that. So between what he had with private companies and what he had as a pilot, the combination of all those coverages, saved the day, really.
We all believe in individual responsibility. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, and provide for them. And John did that. He did that in his life, and he did it in his death.
Our life today is very good. We still look out and see my brother-in-law, who now operates the farm, operating the tractors, working around the farm, and I can't tell you how often I look out and think, that should be John, but it's not. But we've had a very busy life with kids in school and growing up and all that goes on with that, and you move on with your life.
She never let this ruin her life, too. None of us did.
I heard one expression once that said it so well. They said, you never get over it, but you get on with it. And I'd like to think that's what we've done.
Service takes many forms. Prior to becoming a commercial pilot, John Ogonowski served his country in the Air Force. Since 9/11, countless men and women in U.S. Armed Forces have served our country bravely in the ongoing fight against extremism around the world. Others may serve in less heroic ways, but their contributions to society are no less important, like the doctor who heals, the teacher who enlightens, or the clergy member who guides. But what about the insurance agent who advises? Is that service in the same sense of the word? Well, if the stories we've seen tonight are any indication, it's pretty clear to me that what we do for a living can make a pretty big difference in people's lives. Our final award recipient certainly views our business in this way. Please give a warm welcome to our final award recipient of the evening, insurance agent Richard Bourgault.
As I think you can tell from my accent, I grew up in the Boston area. The oldest of 5 children, I felt it was my duty to be successful and set an example for my younger siblings. Aside from my parents, one of the biggest influences in my early years was a young president from my home state of Massachusetts. I was 13 when President Kennedy was assassinated. And yes, I remember where I was at the time. I was in the 8th grade, and I had just gotten out of school when I heard the news. I also remember the inspiring words he shared with our nation when he challenged all of us to make a difference, to make the world a better place. Well, 46 years later, I believe that I'm leading a life of meaning and purpose. For I am an insurance agent, and what I do for a living is help people. I have over 3,000 clients. And our line of work brings me up close and personal with many of them. I've gotten to see many wonderful things happen in the lives of my clients. I've also experienced tragedies with many of these 3,000 families. To be sure, our business can be emotionally draining. I was in my office when I learned that John was the pilot of the first plane to hit the towers. I remember feeling a combination of sadness and anger. But having to fight off a few tears is a small price to pay for the satisfaction of knowing that your efforts have made a big difference in the life of a family you know and love. I want to finish up by sharing one more story behind the story. 2 days after 9/11, I visited Peg at her home to offer my condolences. I reassured her that she'd be fine financially because of the wise planning that she and John had done. But it was clear that money wasn't her biggest preoccupation. The realization had set in that she was now a single parent. And it would be her job, and her job alone, to raise 3 girls who are entering some very challenging years. If you look at the girls today, and all 3 of them are here with us this evening, you will realize what a tremendous job Peg has done. I'll let Peg tell you what Caroline and Mary are up to, but I'd like to say a few words about Laura. Laura is the oldest of the 3. And she was 16 when her dad died. I can still vividly recall when she approached me the day that I came by to offer my condolences. Laura wanted to know if her family would be able to stay in their home and if she and her sisters could remain in the same school. Without hesitation, I firmly told her none of those things were going to change. And as you saw in the video, what I told her was true. But what you didn't learn in the video is what Laura has chosen to do for a living. About 15 months ago, Laura began her career as a multi-line insurance agent. She doesn't work for my company, but I was honored when Peg called me last year and asked if I'd mentor Laura. She's still very new to the business, and her initial focus is to work hard and learn the business. But I have no doubt that over time, Laura will come to realize that ours is a very special profession, one that truly allows you to lead a life of purpose and meaning. It is my pleasure to now introduce to you two very special women, Peg and Laura Ogonowski.
Hello. When something like this happens to your family, it's important to have someone serve as your right-hand man, someone to navigate you through the crisis and help you begin the rebuilding process. That's what Rich has done for our family. And now that Laura has embarked on a career in insurance, she can serve that same important role for her clients. It's now been 8 years since that horrible day when John and so many others lost their lives. As I've said before, you can never get over it, but you can get on with it. And I'd like to think that the girls and I are doing that today. Rich told you what Laura's doing, so let me tell you what my other daughters are up to. My second oldest daughter, Caroline, just graduated from Boston College. She's decided to pursue a master's degree at BC in counseling psychology. She wants to work with young people who have suffered traumatic experiences, a career choice that was definitely influenced by her life experience. My youngest daughter, Mary, attends Endicott College, and she has decided to pursue a career in hospitality and event management. I'm pleased with how the girls have come along. They never fell behind. They never used the event as an excuse for bad behavior or laziness. In fact, they've done just the opposite. John would be extremely pleased too. He'd be proud of the girls and everything they've accomplished. He'd be pleased to see all the improvements we've made to the farm. And I know he'd be happy to know that his memory has been honored in so many wonderful ways. I'm now going to turn things over to Laura, who would also like to share a few thoughts.
As you can see, my mom is an amazing woman. Our lives could have taken a serious turn for the worse after 9/11, but my mom would never have allowed it. She was determined to keep life as normal as possible for my sisters and I, and she did a great job. My mom remains unbelievably supportive of the three of us. She would have been happy no matter what I choose to do professionally. Now that I've made my career choice, my mom wants to help in any way she can. Since she didn't have any experience in sales, it was her idea to suggest that Rich serve as my mentor. Rich and I talk about once a month, and he's been extremely helpful. Starting out in this business can be extremely overwhelming. Rich has given me great pointers on how to prospect and excellent advice that I've carried into client meetings. I think my dad would be very proud of me and my sisters and what we're doing today. He'd be proud that we didn't let 9/11 ruin our lives or use it as an excuse to be quitters. The terrorists killed my father. If they got me and my mother and sisters, they would have gotten all of us, but they didn't. We're still here, and my dad would be so proud to see that we're working hard and that we've prevailed. Two days ago, my mom, my sisters, and I went to downtown Boston, like we do almost every year on 9/11. We donated blood to the Red Cross to honor those who lost their lives. We also attended a nice flag-raising ceremony at the State House, followed by a luncheon where the families can get together and chat. In the first few years, it was a very solemn gathering. But over the last few years, I've noticed a big difference. Wonderful things are happening in people's lives. Kids are growing up. There's a lot to celebrate. When someone you love dies, the last thing they want to have happen is to see their family struggle or quit. As painful as it is to lose a loved one, it's our obligation to pick ourselves up and continue living. That's what my family has done. And through the career I've chosen, I hope to one day help other families do the same. Thank you.